Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Next Door NetAdmin. Last week, I started the process of building a new desktop from parts. I went so far as to plug pretty much everything into the motherboard, excepting expansion cards, and got the motherboard as a unit ready to install into the case. This week, we're going to continue the process and install that subunit into the case along with a few other parts, and then we're going to cable everything up, make it all look good, and we'll be done. There's fewer parts that I'm working with this week, but they're larger, and then there's the trickiness of actually routing the cables. So some of the parts that we're going to be working with today, I have an LG Blu-ray drive. I don't remember the exact model, and I don't think that that's particularly terribly interesting. A lot of machines don't even have optical drives these days at all. So having one is perhaps a little bit of an anachronism, but it's also just what the user's working with. We also have, as I mentioned last week, a 4 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive. This is for shared storage between the operating systems and bulk storage. It doesn't need to be fast. That's why it's a spinning drive instead of a SSD. We also have the big one, that is the video card. It's a Sapphire Pulse AMD Radeon RX 9070 XT. So that will be a good thing to have in there. And then lastly, I showed you this last week as well, but I was using it mainly to power the motherboard to do the BIOS flashback. But today we're going to be installing it fully into the case. That is the Corsair RM1000X power supply, which is going to power the whole shebang. And then we got to get the cables all done up and do all of that. This is all going into, and I'm not going to hold it up because it's a big beastie, the Fractal Design Define 7 case, which has all the room and all the features necessary to make this thing work rather well. Again, none of this is sponsored. This was all selected for purpose by myself. I'm not getting any of it for free. It's all been bought with my own money. And so, yeah, let's get started and put this thing together. Now, the limitations of my filming rig are about to make themselves apparent, but let's keep going as long as we can. I've put the case under the camera and it's huge. But when I take the side off, we can actually see inside the case. The top of the case is actually at the bottom of the screen right now. That is also removable, as is the other side, as is the front. And I suddenly realized that it would be really difficult to do that on camera, so I just pulled the case out in order to take the top and the other side off. And then when I did, it's visible that you can see a little bit more. But the first step in attaching things in the case is to attach the power supply. This is actually at the bottom of the case in a what I would call a trough, or I don't know what the word is right now, but it's held in by a faceplate at the back, which is removable by those thumb screws, or supposedly removable by thumb screws. I actually had to use a screwdriver for it. And that attaches to the back of the power supply so that the entire power supply can be slid in after. And when I do, I actually flip the case up and clock the camera in the process. You can see that there's a grill there for better ventilation, and the power supply goes in fan side up in the back there, and I just slide that through with the cables that I need already attached because it is a modular power supply. And then when I turn it around, you can also see that there are the additional case cables there as well. And the power supply cables are actually that mass at the top left of the image right now. But when I finish with that, I'm actually going to rotate it back down so that we can start attaching the motherboard unit. This is mostly a matter of positioning. All of the standoffs in the case were already set up for an ATX board like this. And so it's just a matter of attaching all the screws one by one and making sure that everything is lined up the way that it should be and getting it all screwed in. I started with the bottom section of the board, and then I continued attaching screws around the rest of the way, as you can see there. And it was about now that I started realizing just how difficult the rest of this was going to be, because I need to flip the case up to route the additional cables through for power, for data, for fan connections, and everything else. And as I was finishing attaching everything and double checking that it was all good, I realized that that would be very, very difficult to do without continually hitting the camera, because my filming rig was so bad. So what I actually did is shut off the camera, and I'm going to walk you through what I did after. So here we are looking at the inside of the case now that everything has been loaded. I'm going to walk you through it all. Starting at the bottom, we have the tunnel-like housing that I was talking about before, where the power supply is, and the hard drives, incidentally, in this section here. At the back, you can see that the power supply is held in by 4 screws, which attach it to the faceplate itself around the edge there. And then the faceplate is held in with the 2 thumb screws, like I mentioned. And then if I set the camera down for just a second here, there we go, magic of editing. You can see that we've got most of the cables tied in here from the front side of the board. That's these thick ones here. These are what drive the ports at the top of the case. And those ones are a little more difficult to have bound in because of the length that they are, and they're already bound in at the front. The power supply's cables, well, those tend to go wherever they're needed. Most of them come up through here. You can see that they go in here. This is for the main power supply connector. We've got CPU power supplies up there. Not power supplies, but CPU connections for sure. We've got some additional connections in the side here for, what did I use here? USB? Yeah, there's a USB port that went in there. And then I had more coming out the front. I'm gonna show you the front anyway, so don't worry, we're gonna cover all of that. But then we have the hard drive in here with the power and data cables to support that. The data cable for the CD-ROM, listen to me, how old am I? For the Blu-ray drive is all on the front side, and the power for that is one of the other connectors that ended up coming up through this bundle. So that's where most of the power connections are for sure. But I'm going to set the camera down again and spin this around so that we can see the inside again. All right, and I'm filming it at an angle here mainly to try and make sure that I get a lot of light in there and without casting too much of a shadow as I try and show you things. I don't know how well that's gonna work, but let's try it anyway. Starting at the very bottom, because that's probably one of the hardest things to see, we've got a few of these. This one is a fan cable, I think. Yeah, it's the fan cable for the top fan here, because that's where it fit in best. And there are other cables for USB 2. Lighting's really crap here, I'm really sorry. But we've got USB 2, that's a little better. We've got the HD audio, we've got the USB 3 is the shiny silver one, kind of over here. And we've got the case buttons on the very edge here. Things like power, that's kind of an important button to wire up, the power button, as well as status LEDs and other such. Then of course we have the nice huge sapphire Radeon card there, complete with its stiffening mounting bracket, which really just kind of rests there. you can see that you can lift the card a little bit, but it's bound in to the same screw holes that keep the card mounted in the case as well, although it's offset by 1. And that's an interesting thing to see. It's powered by 2 PCIe power connectors, which are fed through. The CPU cooler, that's these 2 cooling loops for the AIO, just comes up and is mounted into the radiator at the top. Don't worry, I'll give you a top view as well. But yeah, that's the bulk of that. And if we shift to the side, perhaps a little more. All right, coming at it from further towards the front now. You can see more of the power connections, and the you can see the RAM chips in there too. But we've got the main power connection to the board there. We have some of the additional power connections to the board. And we've got power connections and data connections to the Blu-ray drive. And what else? Yes, there are the additional fan cables. The AIO has its own pump power, of course, but then the fans additionally hook in to the CPU and CPU optional connectors on the motherboard, so that the motherboard can drive the fans and the pump in sync. These 2 fans were mounted higher before. As part of installing a 5¼ inch drive, you needed to drop the fans from here to here, which puts them right against the housing here. So that's convenient for an easy way of knowing where those are supposed to go. The fan connections, one of them is long enough to reach and one of them was not, so I had to do some rerouting of that cable as well. And from the front, you can see how the fans are held in there. This is where I had to do the rerouting of the fan cable, because it comes out and then it does a 180 degree rather, excuse me, and goes straight back in. So it's very difficult to unwind without feeding it back through that entire process, first out and then back in again. It's not something you can just pull a cable through. Also means that it's, you know, the hole is nice and big, but it's actually split in 2 inside, so it can be difficult to actually work a connector through there, which, you know, it's a challenge sometimes. This is a tray for a dust filter that I removed for ease of filming. But yeah, let me take a look at the top now. And here is the top side view. You can see how the radiator is mounted in with these 8 screws. And this is the connection for the pump power, oddly enough. That's where that comes out of. So, okay, fine. This would be a fill port for a water tank if you were going to do a full water cooling setup instead of using an AIO, but no need for that here. All of the ports and etc. that you have along the side there. And let me show you another couple of things here. Specifically, what I want to show you is the fact that there is a dust filter on the top here that actually locks in place, so that's a good thing. And then there's actually an interchangeable top on this thing. This is the one with ventilation, useful when we have a radiator on the top, and that just clicks down into place. It came with a solid top as well. If you were going with completely air-cooled, that would be fine. This one is, like I said, with a radiator coming out the top, better to have some ventilation there. The sides are also magnetic. They just click into place as well. And the front is a little trickier to get in there, so I have to put the camera down to actually get that attached. Once that's attached, though, has a nice door. You can see that we've got air baffles along the front, and there's the room for the Blu-ray drive as well. So that
is very slick.
And there you have it. We've put together the entire desktop from start to finish from parts, and you've seen how I've assembled it all, and that was kind of the whole point with this. I've had a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys have had some fun watching it as well. If you liked this and you want to see more of it, or, well, if you want to see me assembling more machines, I'm kind of going to have the money to get the parts to do that. So maybe not if you want to see more of that specifically, but if there are other things that you would like to see me demonstrate or that you would like to hear me talk about, feel free to let me know right down there in the comments section. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I am your next door netadmin, and we will see you next time.